Welcome to Zero BI's 51st webinar. Over the years, we shared 50 topics exploring the world of business intelligence, data visualization, and reporting. Each one built toward the same vision, empowering everyone, not just analysts, to make data-driven decisions. And that's exactly what today's session is all about, self-service BI in Power BI. I'm a lead BI consultant at Zebra BI, and today I'm joined by Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hey, hello. How are we today?
Yeah, I hope everyone is doing fine. So a quick demo. I mean, what we talk about, what we mean by self-service dashboarding is something that looks like this, right? Something where user can actually control how he looks at data, what he wants to see, actually get insights from a single page or single report where you can drill through dimensions, drill through different measures to see, how your data is turning out, what are the insights, and what you should do next. But before we dive deeper into the self-service and hands-on experience in Power BI, let's first clarify what the self-service BI actually means. Well, it's often, if you do a research, it's often defined as an approach that enables business users, so important thing, not just data teams, right, to explore and visualize and analyze information on their own. So using the governed and easy to use tools. As the main goal is, giving people across the organizations the ability to answer their own data questions and make the decisions faster. Now, in 2025, the self-service BI still comes with the major challenges. The market itself is booming. It's growing nearly 90% per year, yet only about 1/3 of companies say that self-service BI initiatives are truly successful. So the biggest obstacle isn't technology, it's actually governance. Because according to Bark's survey, 73% of companies, quite a high percentage there, cite that lack of semantic layer and metric consistency as the top barrier to scaling the self-service BI. So in other words, people can build dashboards, but they can't always trust the revenue or the margin means that the same thing across departments. So Mark, maybe one question for you. I'm sure you have some insights from working with users on a daily basis. How do they actually typically address this in 2025?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, right? So when we're talking to users, we see that a lot of people are still struggling with this. Okay, how to best, first of all, organize the data layer and the semantic layer and metrics, how to basically create a flexible data model to enable this self-service BI, right? And then because self-service BI is such a wide topic and there's so many different approaches, right? So it also depends on the maturity of the company and the business users, whether or not they are proficient enough with like the BI tools to even like support themselves. It depends, right? So it's never one answer and never one model to approach self-service BI, right? But I think we will delve into more of this different layers later on. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually the same thing that I wanted to actually point out. The real challenge is actually in 2025, which is today, right? Isn't choosing between control and freedom. It's finding the right balance. So how governed you want your data to be, and how much you want to empower people to to work with those data. Quick, yes, a few words about the agenda actually. We're gonna touch a little bit more about self-service and how there are actually different kinds or types of self-service based on what your aim or goal of the implementation is. We'll also share some tips and tricks in Power BI. We're gonna do this as a live demo where me and Mark are gonna actually be taking on concrete business cases, and showing you hands-on how to actually build reports like that and how to work with them. And then we're gonna actually, as we get to the end of this webinar, we're gonna also share some vital steps to implement to consider when implementing the self-service BI strategy. We'll also share resources and download links, which we'll talk about during the session. And in the end, we also have dedicated Q&A session. But even as we speak about the topic, you're actually invited to chat in our chat and even post questions there. We're going to be handpicking the most interesting ones and then addressing them at the end of the webinar. And yes, everyone who registered to the webinar will receive the recording. So yes, you should wait for it for tomorrow morning, and you'll receive the link for it. Yeah, Mark, actually, I've mentioned, there are several types of self-service BI, and I guess you're quite the right person to talk to. What we see in the market, what's the realistic state of self-service in the market with users?
Yeah, so I know that this is like a really, really interesting topic, especially because, several years ago, it was this big promise that with like flexible and really powerful BI tools such as Power BI, you would just to be able to basically provide the data and the tools to the users, and they could basically build their own reports, right? That was the dream, right? Self-service BI, provide the users data, and yeah, they will do the rest. They know what they need, right? And they could just basically build those reports. But in reality, when this model was basically put to the test, it turned out that it's not, of course, as simple as that, right? Of course, if you want to consume the data and build the reports in a flexible and manageable way, and then, yes, build complex objects on top of that, you need, of course, different skill sets, right? Not everyone will be able to do this if they don't understand like the whole data processing, data management, data modeling, and so on. And therefore, right, this true self-service BI from like just raw data was probably not meant to be, right? And then, yes, different approaches were spawned, right? Okay, where is the right access point for these for the business user, right? And again, as I said before, it depends, right? And then several approaches came through it, right? So do we just provide basically managed dashboards, but then allow some flexibility on top of that? Or do we like find a real balance? And I think you'll be talking about these different approaches next. So yeah, that's typically the case.
Exactly, yes. And here actually we are referring to the Data Goblin's great article actually about the self-service and how there are actually several types or tiers of users, or how to actually address those requests, based on who your end user is. And today we'll actually, we're going to be actually mostly focusing on the how you will see here, right? The tier 1 and tier B, which is people who actually, the end business, most typical business end users, who just consume the report, do some cross filtering, perhaps even do some customizing of their reporting using some bookmarks, to get as much as you can from the report in Power BI. But we also enhance it with the Zebra BI because it's both win for the report developer, who can narrow down the development process, speed it up, and actually enrich it for the end user, who then will be immediately spotting the main things. Yes. So in the next part, we are finally approaching the experience in the Power BI in the live demo, and we're actually explore the things that truly matter for the self-service reporting work, right? So to develop these kinds of report, there are actually few core building blocks that every scalable self-service environment should master. Then first, most definitely one of the, I guess, most important ones is proper data modeling. Using the star schema to keep your data clean, efficient, and easy to maintain makes it appropriate for scaling, for adoption, to the wider area of applications. And we actually had a very, very good, actually a few of them, webinars hosted by Mark, who is actually expert on the topic, explaining what are the best practices, how to optimize your model, or even how to start building a model with just a few steps, so that later on it gets appropriate for scaling the solution. And then on top of that, mastering or knowing features like doing the disconnected tables in combination parameters for the self-service experience, where the user can select different kind of dimensions, where it looks at the data, using bookmarks, and tooltips, for the governed, dynamic, and yes, again, user-friendly self-service BI. Mark, do you maybe have any favorites among those mentioned here? Is there any of those, your favorite when it comes to building reports in Power BI?
Well, I'd say especially like in this self-service environment, a combination of all of them is typically like the best scenario. And especially maybe to point out like field parameters can be really powerful when you want to like basically mix and match and give the right amount of freedom to the end users, right? But still do not require them to basically do the modeling and stuff themselves, right? You can basically predefine some structures that allow a lot of this flexibility that in the end, we can say that's like the right balance of let's say, interaction with the report but also like, okay, a freedom of choice for the end user. Yeah. So I'd say like field parameters with bookmarks are a really, really good combination. But of course, use sparingly, right? We cannot just use them on everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you will notice later on when we actually go into Power BI, you'll see that we will actually try to provide a few examples, how you can approach the dynamic experience, either with switch statement, or maybe you can as alternative, maybe you would use field parameters, maybe both solutions. In some cases, both solutions may be viable solutions, but it's ideal if you could master both and then decide for yourself what is the best for your use case. Okay, so now is actually the time to dive into the Power BI. Mark, I'm going to let you actually first do the first intro to the Power BI desktop and the managed self-service in the Power BI.
Yeah, for sure. So let me just grab the screen. And there we go. Should come up any moment. Okay, so yeah, we'll start with, let's say, a typical managed experience, but at the same time, we'll highlight how you can enhance it with certain visuals and settings to make it much more interactive and customizable, right? And more of this like, okay, I'm looking at the report, but I want to make it my own. I want to get to my own data and my own comparisons and so on, right? So to basically cater to the business users' needs and the ability to support like multiple business users, right? So this would be a typical like financial benchmarking example, right? So we have several financial statements built into one same visualization, right? And this would be like our starting point, right? So we have like typical income statement examples, balance sheet, cash flow, and so on. And we can incorporate multiple elements and multiple basically displays into the same visualization, right? So with Zebra BI visuals, you can basically have different views and like completely interchangeable views and customizable displays, right? Something like changing a chart type or changing a column or display can be done even by the end users, right? Should you want to provide that level of detail. And then, of course, you can expand it by providing even like custom report page tooltip breakdowns. And this is the level of like this exploratory self-service dashboard that you can provide maybe for this tier one like group, right? Where you want to give basically the managed experience, right? So you provide all the calculations, all the objects beforehand, but the user has the freedom of choice to basically manipulate the display of certain objects. And on top of that, right, you can then expand. For instance, here we have like a benchmarking report, right? So we can compare ourselves or our competitors between each other. And yeah, we can provide like flexible objects, like in this case, we have a grouping of the company. So we can easily like just side by side compare the results for income statements of, let's say, Coca-Cola and Pepsi in this case, right? So you can basically benchmark this dynamically, right? And if you want to compare something else, you can do it the same, right? Different companies is just, and we give this flexibility, right? So basically we have the choice for the end users to look at their preferred data. That's one way of looking at it, right? And we can then expand this also to different views, right? Maybe side-by-side comparison on yearly views, right? And again, we can add this flexibility of just the level of detail that we want to provide to the users, or we can even look at like KPI trends and then incorporate all of this into a flexible design that still provides like selection of choice, right? So we can go for different KPIs within the same report, within the same comparisons, and just combine all of these tools to provide like this flexibility or different aspects, different flavors of the report on different topics, right? And whether it's like adding commentary on top of that, or even some annotations like Kager arrows or storytelling elements, like commentary or highlighting and stuff like that. This can basically provide like additional, let's say, personalization or self-service experience on top of what we already provide to this tier 1 users, or users that basically will not interact with the report or build their own calculations, but you can even integrate some really nice views and like experiences through like interactive tools of the visualizations in Power BI. Now, there's also one layer to this, which is how you basically control interaction, right? Because when you're designing this tier 1 experience, you want to make sure that your users are familiar with the interactions, but you also don't want to overwhelm them with all this, let's say, clickable or interactive experiences like changing labels and everything. And if you have the right visuals, in this case we're using Power visuals, you can basically control every part of this interaction for the right level of detail or interaction that you want to do through the interaction control. So basically you can turn the interaction completely off, and basically what the user will see is what they'll get, right? So they will not be able to use the chart slider or dynamically change views and stuff like that. But once you, of course, progress through these tiers and you want to allow more freedom of like modifying the views, right, you can introduce more interaction options, and that's like the basis of this experience, right? Just for the tier one views. But I believe, right, in true self-service fashion, or like the right balance, there's an even better approach, right, to provide even more freedom. And I think Thielen will guide us through some examples how you can basically and features how you can basically enable this, let's say, more of a tier 3, 4, and 5 experience to the end users. So yeah, I'll give the word back to Thielen.
So let me take over the screen again. We're gonna go, as Mark was showing the Power BI stuff, I also have to share mine. So this is actually the report that I've shared you at the beginning of the webinar, and actually that's the case, and I'm going to be showing you those key steps or key things to master the Power BI. And yes, as Mark mentioned, there are different stages of self-service. He addressed the most managed one, right? With the most governance, I guess. And having the control feature actually is something that's really addressing the need. If you want to be more managed, how do you call it, more governed, you can lock everything, and as you want to offer more freedom, you unlock things based also on the knowledge and experience of the end users, which when it comes to the adoption of soft solutions, also quite important to think about. But and again, as you switch from this, how much managed, how much freedom you offer, you also have to think about whether this is this serving is this like a self-service exploratory dashboard, or is this something that is serving more as an exploratory, exploratory or explanatory, right? If this is meant just to explain some things, just to convey the message of the already prepared insights, then it's, maybe a managed way is much better one, keeping the interactions down. But if you would like to offer this dashboard as, really with more freedom, to explore and look for the insights on their own, then I guess more interaction can perform better. Okay, so we look at it, the solution like this, where you can actually handpick how you want to slice your data, how you want to, from which dimensions you want to look at it, from which angles you want to analyze it to spot particular insights, get use of the cross filtering, to work in your favor, and then offering different views, such as one with tables, which is perfect for your structural analysis, and then another one, with charts, with trends, which is perfectly suitable and actually advised for the trend analysis. So how to actually go and start building such things? I've mentioned those few key pillars that you should master, but it's actually not as tough as it may sound at first sight. So maybe first thing, right? I mentioned the data modeling, so I'm gonna be just a few words about the model. We always recommend star schema with a fact table and some dimensional table, which also includes a calendar table right here, which will be important for the time intelligence that we're going to be using for our dashboarding. And then we also have some disconnected tables, which in combination with the switch statement, again, very useful for the self-service reports. And then field parameters, which I'm going to also be touching upon in about a minute or two. Okay, so how do you start with this? Here we have like just two visuals on the page. It's a card and a Zero BI table, Zero BI card, that is. If you don't have the Zero BI visuals yet, you will find it under the get more visuals, and then in the app stores, just look for the Zebra and download it. You actually at this point I can mention, you also have an opportunity to use the 30-day free trial to test those visuals out, and stick around with me and I'll show you why you should do that. So if we just, for example, take the regular basic multi-card native visual, and I just want to show my actual sales, which are 8.8 million, and perhaps add some plans to it, like this, you will get something like this. But if I immediately now switch this to, just to give you an example of Zero BI card, if I switch it to the Zero BI card, I immediately get, the calculation of variance between those two, and I can even include, I can place the actual plans into plans, and then also use the previous year figure, calculate both variances, because more context should always serve better to get to the insights. Now, these are my sales now for the entire 2024, right? And since I have a calendar table, I actually just want to be looking at my latest results, which is actually the August ones. And for it, I will need to create a slicer, add in the month field from the calendar table, and then simply select an August. That's a quite simple approach, how to build your basic first steps of interaction in Power BI, just adding a slicer and letting the slicer work for you to slice through the data. So, but it's not always that you want to just look at one KPI in isolation. And here we actually come to this pillar that I mentioned, so the disconnected table, which is the KPI table. And if I show you the KPI table right now, it actually looks a simple table with KPIs and a KPI ID. For now, this is the only thing that we're actually interested in. How do you create this? You just simply go to the Home tab and click Enter Data. Then you just simply type in your values. You can also put in the IDs, name it, load it, and it will be in your data model. Now, why it's called disconnected table? Well, it doesn't have a defined relationship with the fact table as in other as with the dimension table actually. So the last remaining thing that we need to do now to get use of this KPI disconnected table, to actually build something like this, where I can have actually multiple KPIs within one visual, right? You can see I just dropped the KPI, the 4 KPIs, and it's kind of separated one card into 4 different kind of charts, keeping the variances in there. So how do you actually do that? Well, the only remaining thing that I did is actually in the calculation of my AC values, I'm including actually a selected value measure, which is actually this one, where I define, based on what is the selected KPI, so either revenue or cost or gross profit or gross margin for that matter, it returns me the value I'm actually asking for, right? So in this case, I don't have anything specific selected, so it's showing me all 4 of them, which is great. This is what I want. And now I can use this, to filter the data. Now I'm showing the revenue. I can show you also the gross profit, but just by clicking on the card, and it will filter the rest of the visuals on the page. Now, but this is just a basic step. We should even do something more. Now, why stop here? And in addition to KPIs, you will notice that on the left-hand side, I have a pane of all the filters, which can, actually control what I'm showing on the visuals. And the first one, and it's quite relevant for, I guess, not just for finance cases, but I would say in most business cases where you're actually looking at data from a monthly perspective or a year-to-date perspective, or let's maybe some companies, track also the trends with the last 12 months calculation to spot, how they are moving through them given the seasonality. And how do you approach this? This again is just a slicer, which uses, the period calculation field from the disconnected table. Same as with KPIs, I'm using a table with period calculations, so month to date, year to date, and last 12 months, and I'm just bringing it in here. But then in the calculation of my AC value, I'm using, switch statement again with combination with disconnected table. I'm using the switch statement where it is defined, calculate my AC for a month to date. If the selected period is year to date, then just, calculate it with the dates YTD function. Or if you want last 12 months, calculate it this way. And in any case, we're going to be sharing you the materials that we're using today, right now. We're going to share you as a follow-up material, so you can actually go there and copy paste the formulas if that's what you would want to, or find inspiration for your use case.
Just to maybe add here, right? So that's right, a pretty interesting approach, and maybe quite different than maybe people are used to in like Power BI, right? So typically you would have these many measures and like time intelligence spread out through like different measures and so on. But with this approach, you basically can incorporate all of these things into like single measures, right? To have less maintenance even so, right? And it makes it more for a more like, let's say, lean approach in that way. And one interesting like thing you did with the KPI cards, right? So because we incorporated the cards itself as like a grouping of KPIs, you showcase that you can basically filter through the visualization itself, right? So basically, instead of like having a slicer for the KPIs in this case, you can even integrate like these selections into the visualization and insights themselves. So that's a really, really interesting approach.
Yeah, exactly. Especially I like this kind of way. Why? I mean, it does take. I would say it takes a bit more space. I mean, we could still condense this and make it even smaller, the cards. But if you compare like a simple slicer, it actually is just a slicer. It doesn't offer any insights. But a card, which can act as a slicer, right? It includes information. It does have insights in it. So kind of having two values in just one feature. So for me, that one is really something that I like to use a lot. Okay. Mark, maybe any other ideas that you may have right now?
Yeah, no, just from the layouting, like when you're designing reports with end users in mind, you want to give them freedom, right? But you still want to provide as much information and have like the dashboards information and insight dense, right? So if we can like provide any sorts of visualization, it will always be better than just like, let's say, plain tables or plain numbers, right? Provide context, provide like some insights that are inherently built into the dashboards, right? So that's I think is a really great concept to think about when you're designing those layouts for the end users in mind.
And as you were speaking out of the context, in the meantime, I just simply added the PL measure actually, which is my measure for plan values. I just dropped it into the tables, and as you can see, immediately, again, the context or the variances are added automatically and calculated for me, so that I can immediately spot that my baby carrier is actually not performing very well. Again, something that speeds up in the first identification of the potential problem, and then getting to the decision what to do about it. Now we mentioned this is you can even go and create more self-service, more flexible, more freedom. You can offer more freedom. Why stick at this stage, where you actually have predefined categories within the table. You can actually go and actually use the field parameters, where you can actually instead of have a predefined view which says this is my performance based on groups. Actually, you can offer something that says okay, here will be a slicer which will ask you what is the dimension that you want to break down the data. And how you do that is actually you just go to a modeling tab, create a new parameter, select the fields, and you will be open with this parameter window where you can define which are the dimensions that perhaps you would like to look at the data. Actually, which are the dimensions that you would like to offer your end users, so he can slice through the data, and you just click on them. I'm going to be adding also a salesperson, and just like that, you can also leave this tick mark on. This will create automatically a slicer for you. You will not have to do it individually. You name it, so that it will be easier for you to navigate and maintain your data model, and then create it. I'm not going to do that because I already have it created. So then, as a next step, you will look for the filter parameter, which is that's the one that I created. You will drop it into the fields, and now the remaining thing that you need to actually do is you need to replace this static, category breakdown with a field parameter, which you just defined, and like this, and then you have a slicer where you can actually select, how you want to look at your data. Whether it's regional, category, groups, or by salesperson. Then you can even use, the sorting, to sort your salesperson, who's performing best, who's performing worst, or even, choose different kind of visualization technique for your tables. I personally really love this one that it's, kind of by default here. It's a kind of overlap bar chart which includes both the plan values and the AC values. Because this then allows you to maybe hide particular columns such as plans which are already visible in here. And now having the field parameter slicer doesn't just mean that you need you just have one node of hierarchy in it. You can actually go and select both region and country. This is kind of a sensible hierarchy, right? Where you can then drill into particular markets to find more data. Then you can again control and press the slicer selection to offer even additional layer of hierarchy. Now I know as we've been preparing actually for this webinar, Mark actually proposed me another solution, which is also quite important one, and it's actually combination of the field parameters and bookmarks. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be showing it today, but we will share also the link to how to do it. But it's actually you can actually predefine the hierarchies, such as for example, I will have the region and country already as a bookmark. Then I can select it, and it will show me the region and country. And in the other case, I will have division and group as a separate defined hierarchy. I will not have to just go this way as I did right now. Click this one and click another one to build a hierarchy. I actually have a predefined one. Quite an interesting technique. Go ahead, Mark.
Correct, and yeah, this comes right from another really crucial step, right? And this is knowing your users and how they will consume these reports, even in self-service form, right? So if there are typical views And yeah, you can. And the best way to do this is to actually talk to the users, right? What's the typical scenario they will analyze, and in this way, with combination of like this custom hierarchies with filter parameters and then bookmarks to get the exact layout, right? Because you can control the like some predefined layouts, right? If they're typically looking at like growth rates or just the variances, you can even like change the layout of the entire visual to that specific point or to the expanded hierarchy and so on, and save it as a bookmark. And then give it like as a predefined, like some of the predefined more common options. But then you can even like say, okay, but yeah, if you want still complete customization, you can even add a bookmark to then allow this additional like customization. Okay, yeah, I want to like tweak everything myself. So yeah, that's a really nice like way how you can basically set some predefined views that are most common. But yeah, it's really important to get these inputs from the business, from the users, and that's the best way to actually iterate and improve on the reports and grow this self-service experience in the end.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the crucial things when trying to implement and adopt the Power BI, I mean self-service BI. Definitely talk as much as you can to the end users. Get their feedback as often as you can, because that's the true input you really need on how to design and what to predefine and not what not, right? And it's not about just having control over the categories. You can also have control over groups. If I now just simply do the same thing as I did, I created the field parameter, which allows me to filter through region, countries, divisions. I can also do the same thing for the groups, and I already created the field parameter, which I'm going to drop into the groups. And with combination with the slicer that I have right here, again, the same parameter is in the slicer. I can now control, how I want to slice my data from the, in a group dimension, which means in the column, right, dimension. And, I can say, I want my period calculations to be shown. So I can select month to date and it will show month to date. If I do the multi-selection, it will show me month to date and year to date next to each other, which is also quite a common use case that actually I was using as once I was an analyst. I always like to see, what is my performance for the last month, and what does this actually mean when I look at it from the context of year-to-date performance, how we're doing this year. But then also switching to divisions to have like maybe a breakdown by divisions, how am I doing in one division compared to the other one, which one is performing better or worse. Again, you can have control over that as well. Now, as I was explaining this, you may several times I've hovered over the particular columns or values, such as in this case, right? And I will get a additional insights or a kind of a trend insight into each particular number just by hovering over. This is a tooltip. I mean, you probably all heard about it. It's nothing, special. It's a separate page that, I've enabled as a tooltip. We can also share, we'll actually share the detailed explanation how to do that. I won't go into details right now, but essentially, it offers a additional dimension which you can look into as you explore your data just by hovering over a particular case. But again, why? If you want to offer even more freedom to the users, the really sky's the limit. But again, you come to the point where, knowing how much freedom you want to give to the users. But if you would like to offer something like this, with the bookmarks, you can actually control what is shown in the tooltip. What kind of visual do I want to offer? A structural breakdown with tables, or I want to use charts, to give like an insight into, for example, last 13 months, how I performed over the last 30 months. What my trend is in that particular value. And if I choose, for example, to show something by tables, I need to select the table first. If you show something by table, you can actually also control what you want to be shown as part of the table, how you want to, what is placed within the tooltip, actually, which categories are shown. And, for example, in North America, it appears we're only selling electronics, but we're performing very bad. And this is something I can uncover just simply by hovering over and selecting a setting for my tooltip. And then later on, if you want to isolate isolate some particular analysis. If you want to focus on particular customer, you can just simply add a slicer with a search box, type in the particular customer, select it, and it will narrow down all your data set to that particular customer and see how he's been performing over the years. Yeah. And then
I'd say maybe to add here, right?
Yeah.
This is also another of the techniques that's often overlooked, right? And tooltips are typically left at what they are or even turned off, but it's a really nice way how to basically provide further breakdowns without even leaving the page or the context, right? So yeah, if you need to provide trends together with like the structural breakdowns, you can just add it as a tooltip, right? And the benefit of a report page tooltip is that even the query will be triggered on demand, right? So it's not slowing down the performance in itself. So it's a really nice way to, okay, so when you actually hover over, it will trigger the query. So the experience should typically be good.
Yeah, and even from the perspective of user experience from someone who is perhaps not skilled in Power BI or BI in general, I guess that's the most intuitive thing is, just hover over something and you will uncover more. That's, it cannot be simple than that. So, yeah, tooltips are a great way to actually benefit from those things. Additionally, but it's not just, it's not always that you're interested in structural breakdowns, and it's not just tooltips that can offer you insights into trends. You can actually build, a button, and I'm gonna actually insert it now. Insert a button. I'm gonna do the blank one because I want to get used of the custom text. So I'm gonna go into style, and this is my button. Obviously, name it. I've already named it to switch the charts, which will allow me then to navigate to another page actually, just by clicking it, which will then offer me a view trend analysis of the same kind of data, but in trend analysis with charts. So how to do that? I just simply select that button, go into this format button pane, open up the actions, enable them, and then say I want this to be as a page navigator, and then you simply select the page that you want to be taken to, right? And I'm gonna use this one, demo to trend analysis, and then I'm gonna actually just click this one. It takes me then to another page where I have perhaps a different view over my data. This one now maybe more meant for those who are interested in the trend analysis, so the analysis through time, and it's not. We actually want to end up with something like this, where you have like a breakdown of data, but still having the time dimension, and this is just one visual. It's a small multiple visual, and it's really, really easy to create, especially if you use Zebra BI visuals. So what I have here is in categories, I have year and month, and I have, again, an AC value. And for comparison and for context, I'm going to be bringing in plans, just like that. As I dropped it, the chart already did the calculation of variances and showing them, in a best possible way. And then, actually, I want my data to be, sliced down by particular. Let's maybe take groups of my business units, like this, and I get a maybe switch to 2024, and I get a kind of overview over my entire portfolio of groups, or product groups, having immediate insights into what is my most important product group, which in this case is baby care, because I'm selling it. There's a top selling unit for me, right? And I can even again use the cards visual to control what I'm looking at, which KPI I'm actually interested in. But let's say now we are actually back to 2025, and we are in August, right? Now we're only showing actually 1 month, but what I want actually to see is, if I'm in August, what's my trend for the last year or the last 2 years? And we do that by using the approach we call rolling periods, and it's just simply another switch statement which calculates my AC values based on the selected rolling period, right? So if we select 30 months, I want the trend of 30 months to be calculated. Again, with dates in period function, you can define those, and then having this in your slicer, you can then control those periods. So now I need to replace the AC value with my AC rolling values, and I do the same for the plans, like this. And what this now means is, now if I select the August, right, and I have my 30 months selected, it will show me the last 30 months. And if I go to the, I don't know, July, I'll be actually just moving back in time, but still having the 30-month trend. And, I can even have a 2-year trend, 3-year trend, just depends how big your data set is, how long, how much of history do you have in your data. But essentially you can keep it dynamic to, to end user to decide what is the actually trend that he's most is interested in. Again, if we talk to the users, they may only perhaps just need one way, maybe just 13 months is the only relevant one. But again, you have endless possibilities to offer more views. Yes, Mark.
And another another benefit of using these flexible visuals, right? So when you switch to maybe a longer period, like a 3-year plan, so yeah, if you just click on it,
yeah, sorry,
for the 3 years, yeah. Right now, yeah, you can see there's more to explore, right? So we can easily switch to maybe like an area or a line chart, right, to see this more longer term trends. And this is the flexibility of these interchangeable visuals, right? So you can get basically to these, even like a variance analysis chart, right? So yeah, you can choose, and the end users can basically choose which option of the visualization provides them the most information, right? So in this case, yeah, when you're dealing with shorter periods, like a waterfall or a column chart where we're looking at individual variances, makes more sense, right? But when we move into this longer term analysis, right, a line area chart can provide even better visual explanation whether we're moving upwards or downwards in whatever we're analyzing, right?
Exactly. Couldn't agree more. Great input, Mark. And in some cases, people for example, like to analyze revenue from the perspective of, okay, my revenue is growing, but what is happening to my margin? And that's what we call I will get use of the combo chart. So just dropping another value into the values will, in this case, for small multiples, turn into the combo chart where I have my sales in combination with the gross margin showing me insights. And this is actually something that you can, again, with combination of bookmark and and offering and adding actually 2 visuals in the report, you can then control either if you want to show the combo chart or not. This way I'm showing it, I deselect the bookmark, and I have a different visual, which now offers me a responsive view into the multiple charts. Or I can select perhaps additional bookmark to actually control the layout so that I only show the variances itself, so the absolute and relative, just the absolute and relative variances, instead of having this. But again, this can be completely up to the end users to choose how he wants to look at the data. Either it's in charts or tables, but everything is really just a click away. Okay.
Yeah, and that last view, Dylan, that was quite interesting, right? So how you can actually easily showcase growth trends. So if we turn off the combo chart view and go to the variances.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah, I mean this is something that's really powerful, right? So in the Zebra BI charts visual, you can actually choose in the setting, right, several different views, and one of them is this growth rates or absolute and relative variances. And yeah, because all these settings are bookmarkable, basically you can predefine a variety of custom views, and just with a click of a button, then the user can choose, okay, this is the most appropriate one for my analysis, right? And yeah, you can even interchange different plan scenarios, forecasts, and so on. I think you will showcase that later on as well, right, Timo?
Yeah, exactly. And you actually gave me a cue to switch to another use case, which is a financial one, where actually we, as you mentioned, you may have a governed, already managed self-service, which managed report, which already have some, self-servicing in there. And in this case, this is an income statement, or just let's call it a financial statement. But with Slicer, just one Slicer, you can actually switch between 3 different kind of financial statements. It's an income statement, balance sheet, or a cash flow. Just clicking to switch between one or the other financial statements. And what is actually what allows us to do that is first, again, the data modeling, which is, in this case, again, we have fact table with financials and also some commenting there, but essentially we have financials, and then we have a dimensional table, which is account one with account hierarchies, and each account actually, if I show you in the table view, each account also have an indication to which report type it corresponds to. Now, since my fact table, this one, my fact table has all of the accounts that correspond to all 3 visuals. So with this slicer, then I can control which financial statements I want to look at. And this is, for me, that's quite in addition to year-to-date and month-to-date performance, having something like this that allows you to switch between different either departments or, for that matter, report types. That's very, very beneficial, and it shortens the time of the analysis. And also, when you're conveying a message, it supports you a lot. But since we were talking about the self-service and also offering more possibilities, more freedom to the end users, you can actually take that performance, take that P&L, which actually I can quickly demonstrate. You can take that P&L, so I can quickly demonstrate how to create it with Zebra BI visuals. Again, I'm bringing in from the accounts group, I'm bringing in groups and accounts, and I have AC values. Now, I, again, want to compare myself to the plan, so dropping it here, and I want that, waterfall to be shown to help me actually explain my P&L. And the only remaining thing that I need to do is I need to just define which accounts, which elements, which categories in the table, take away from my profit. And I do that by simply grabbing the category class field, drop it into the category class placeholder right here, and boom, just like that, my financial statement, my income statement, has a proper visualization explaining me what builds my profit, what takes it away. Now, the requirement, as mentioned, in the account group, in the account hierarchy, right, table, I have this column which indicates which accounts are the expenses, if they have minuses, which accounts are the results, such as gross profit, as an operating income and net income, and the visual then knows which is what, and then it calculates my P&L. Then when we have the P&L there, right, we also want to control, which calculation we are using. It's a month to date or a year to date or last 12 months, or perhaps we want to, have the control on, to show 2 of them as I did earlier. So again, I'm going to be bringing in, created the field parameter, drop it into the group, and now I can control, what is shown, and also have an indication which one I'm showing. And in addition to that, not just that these group titles can tell me what is in there. I can also define my titles so that they are dynamic, meaning right now if I select the September month, check out what happens to the title. It's dynamic, which means that I can choose different months, and this will be displayed then into the title, giving you instant insights into what you're actually looking at, given what you've made with the selections. Now, if I add, for example, if I want to show all 3 of them, month to date, year to date, and last 12 months, you may notice that it's if I want to use all those visualizations within the table, it might offer you option to so that you can scroll through it, or as an alternative, you can always have a secondly defined view with this. We call it the chart slider with charts. Here you have another possibility with change view, where you can actually offer a second predefined layout for for the table when they have more information in it. less visuals. I mean, a bit light on the visuals compared to the previous one, but still offering all the important insights that need to be spotted. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the month date and give you actually a view on something that is also quite relevant. So in some cases, you would like to see the comparison to plan, but still you're also interested to the previous month, right? And you can actually control this by having a slicer, which is now not working because I didn't put it in the tables yet. But essentially, I can, if I now switch to the breakdowns page, what I did here is I actually inputted, the group by. This is the one that I can group by different period calculations or business unit. But essentially, what I did was I also took the I again created a new dimension disconnected table, which has a defined what I want to compare my data to, either compared to previous year, previous month, or plan. And then in the table, I again created a field parameter which allows me to that was not field parameter. I actually used the DAX to create the DAX for dynamic P&L with a switch statement. Which means, if I'm selecting a first option, which is previous year, return blank for my plans. And, for the dynamic switch between previous year and month, I said, if previous month is selected, so option 1, then return my previous year. If 2, then previous month, and then 3rd is blank. And then the remaining thing that you need to take care of is in the Zero BI visuals, you have a possibility to suppress the empty columns, which means that all those columns that have no data, that the DAX returns blank, you can automatically hide them, and then actually you're ready to show all those 3 comparisons. Why is dynamic previous year and previous month? Why would you want to have the possibility to switch between those 2? Well, it makes especially a lot of sense when, for example, in income statement, you would typically compare to the previous year. But with balance sheet, I guess in most cases it will be very, very sensible to actually look for the previous month. What happens what happened from the previous month? Where are the biggest changes? Which assets have increased as a result of particular business actions? And then, as we shown earlier, using the field parameters to control what kind of hierarchy do you want to have and what is the view that you want to be looking at. Gives you the option to look from different angles. And it's not just that the titles can be dynamic, also the dynamic column headers are possible, which means that now you can at each stage of the experience that user has with the report, he will know what he's looking at. If month to date selected, then it says this is month to date. If the year to date, that's year to date, and so forth, right? So really keeping it as informative as possible and clear at every stage. And again, you can still make use of the charts to offer a time analysis to analyze trends. And with bookmarks, as shown earlier, you can control how you want to be looking at your data. So that was quick on how to address kind of a sales report with some gross profits and margins, and then also some on financial use case, how to create a financial statement which still allows you to explore it in more details. So we're going to actually we're approaching the closing of this webinar. So let me go back to the my presentation. We ended up at the slide for the live demo. So that's exactly where I need to start now. Yes, so we dived into Power BI. Now we would like to actually, now that we've shown you how to create and use those pillars and then enrich them with Zero BI visuals, should be clear by now, that they offer you a better not just governance. I mean, it does offer governance in terms of every visuals is standardized, everything is looked at from the same with the same kind of design, But also, in some cases, you don't have to calculate variance for each particular measure because this is taken care by the visuals, and then offering, as Mark explained, all those interaction features such as annotations, where you can actually add Kager arrows, add comments, to really explain the why behind the data. So to put all those that you've learned today to practice, start by scanning the QR code on the screen. It will take you to a page to apply for the 30 days free trial for Zero BI custom visuals in Power BI. So take your time, try it at your pace. Now, Zero BI has more than 3,000 companies worldwide. So as a kind of a proof that you should be the one also trying this out, Zero BI visuals, we do have a lot of actually success stories with Zero BI listed on our website, and want to highlight when it comes to self-service reporting is KPN. And I know Mark was quite heavily involved, with collaboration at KPN. So Mark, do you remember how and what they achieved with Zebra BI in Power BI when it comes to the self-service BI?
Yeah, I'd say, the KPN case, I believe they did really an extremely great job of implementing all of this, right? Basically, they came up with the concept of exploratory dashboards because their users demanded it, right? So it was really a good way and showcase of how far you can get when you take this to a complete, fully self-service approach, but providing all the objects beforehand, right? So their BI team basically designed the entire exploratory dashboard with this in mind. Of course, they had their managed reporting space, but for this exploratory dashboards, you want to provide as much options, and then because you can use all of this dynamic and interactive views within the same visuals, they found Zebra BI to be the perfect tool to provide the right level of self-service experience for their dashboarding scenario. But yeah, they really did an excellent job for providing this for the end users. So if you're interested in checking their solution out, we have this customer story on our webpage. Here's the link that you can try it out and then see how they did it and what they did it directly firsthand from their experience.
Yeah. And again, kudos to the team at KPN. They really did a tremendous job. So as a final kind of closing to our final thoughts, Mark, would you be kind enough to share your expertise, your advice on how to actually address the from the top approach, as if you were kind of a head of BI, how to implement a sales service BI strategy? What are the key steps?
Yeah, I'd say the exact same steps that we have now on the screen, right? So first, we need to define clear goals and expectations. So we need to gather those inputs beforehand, or talk to the users, see what we can basically define through the visualizations, through the tools that are offered to us, but also gather real inputs, gather real insights into what the end users wants, right? And then we can assess, okay, this is our data landscape. This is how we structure the data, and then what we need later on is, of course, to identify and involve our developers, right? Teach them on all of these techniques that they can use. Of course, then later select the appropriate tools to provide the best experience that we can. And we need to ensure that we're still looking at truthful data, right? So our users need to be able to trust their data. So the only way to actually do this is to have those governed, established sources that are cleaned, are prepared, and managed, so that the end users know that, okay, what I'm seeing on the screen is actually clean, it's truthful, I can actually trust this, right? So and based on the usage, you can even check, right, if the dashboards that you create are actually being used and are providing the value, right? And if they're not, you can then of course go back and have this feedback loop to see, okay, what's missing, right? What do we need to add, and so on. But yes, in the end, right, for any adoption of new tools or new solutions, we need to provide like training, explanations, and you can like again incorporate like tooltips or bookmarks or intro pages, right, to teach or walk through, right? If you have the capacity, you can even organize a workshop to walk through or demonstrate how to use these dashboards, and of course provide an area of feedback. But in the end, we need to monitor, refine and adapt, and keep this as a live project, right? We cannot just say, okay, here's your data or here's your dashboards, now use them. That will never work, right? We need to talk to the user, we need to engage, and of course, adopt new practices as they come along.
Yeah, and believe us, it's possible. We have KPN, a success story which proves that it is possible, and it's beneficial for the entire organization, I guess, because it does add value to the business, saving both time, and adding value in terms of making better decisions at the end. So here's also a list of resources. Yes, the more than 50 hours since we had more than 50 webinars. Additionally, you will also have access to Zero BI Academy, along with live demos happening each month, and some Power BI examples you can look for to find inspirations. So yeah, with this, the live, or let's call it the webinar part where we share what's on our plan is finished. So kind of a managed part is over now. So offering more freedom to you as end users, let's head out to the Q&A section and address some questions for you. So let's go straight to the questions. I'm going to be actually sharing them based on the most upvotes, and Mark will I'm going to be asking actually Mark for the first question. So we've been showing you, how the Kager arrow, so the blue arrow looks like. And Mark, could you just show it how quickly this can be done in Power BI Desktop using the Zero BI visuals? It's really a click, boom solution.
Sure. I just need to be able to grab the screen. So I guess we need to, okay, yeah.
Maybe we can start sharing them. Yeah.
Screen, got it. Okay. Okay, so I think this is what was mentioned, right? So the Kager arrows, yeah, that's actually a pretty cool addition to the annotation layer. So the annotation layer is part of the Zero BI visuals, which basically gives you access to storytelling elements, right? So if you have, like, currently I believe this is only enabled if you just have one the AC values populated, right? So not for like comparison charts, but it's basically you click on this annotation, and here you can add it or even delete it, right? So if I'm here, I can just delete the Kager arrow. So yeah, if I have like a trend line, all I need to do is basically add it, and it will calculate the Kager for me, and then you can even rename it to whatever you want, right? To comment directly on it and so on. But yeah, it's just similar to the commentary feature where you can just add comments on top of it, right? So if I were to add a comment, I can just add it here, add that particular data point, write it in. So yeah, that's a really good like storytelling or providing more insights, right? Just out of the box without additional like coding elements or having to overlay visuals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think this is as easy as it can get in Power BI to add something like this to the numbers, right? Okay, so on to the next question. Adam was asking about the rolling period charts. So he was actually asking or saying that it would be great if the variance at probably the one at the right hand side, what we call the difference highlighter, could show the variance from the start of the period rather than showing the last period variance. And yeah, exactly. I see we have the example open. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so that's another template, right? Where basically we can control like what's the length of the rolling period that we are choosing, right? So you can basically use the slider to extend or make it shorter. But yeah, the difference highlight is also like a special feature of Zebra BI, basically, which allows you to do this calculation, right? And you can even switch between like absolute, relative, or both displayed here. So it's another setting here that you can find. You can turn it on and off, so you can basically even bookmark it, right? And yeah, it's a nice addition. It does the calculation for you. You don't have to do any DAX gymnastics to do this. And yeah, you can control it whether it's like first to last or automatic, penultimate to last, min to max. It also depends on the choice of chart you're using, right? So by default, it depends.
Yeah. And those options are even possible on the visual, right? Even if you hover over the highlighter in the visual, you will have the menu opened up, right?
Yeah.
So kind of two ways how to control it.
Yeah.
Okay. On to the next one question from, I hope I pronounced it correctly, it's Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you change the tooltip by the slicer selection? I was showing that example on the example of sales. Yeah, it's actually it's a bookmark actually. And do you have maybe example open up, Mark, or should I share it?
Yeah, I can show it. It's on a different template, but basically it's kind of a more of an advanced trick, right? So if you want to include, I mean, report page tooltips, it's pretty straightforward. But what if you want to make it like more personalized, right? So that you can change it. Basically, on the tooltip page, you do a trick where you overlay a few visuals, and then you can basically, with a bookmark, hide and show them on demand. Now, the trick is that once you actually have the bookmark created for that particular tooltip, you first of all target it only for the selected visuals, right? So when you select the visuals on that page, you want them only to affect that those visuals, right? And in that settings, but then also you turn off the current page. So now I can control that tooltip page from any page I want. So this basically means that I can be on this page, right, and just switch with a button, right? So this is just an inserted button that has the control of this bookmark, which are groups, right? So that I can basically have a group of bookmarks, right? So that's the trick. But yeah, it's a nice trick that can be used in certain scenarios and like maybe even impress some long-standing Power BI users. I know it's a pretty nice trick to use.
Yeah, I think bookmarks are really kind of an awesome feature, but just when using them, the more you put, the harder it gets to maintain them. So keep in mind
that's true. Yeah. Don't go crazy with them.
It gets quite a pain in the ass if you put too much.
Correct.
The next question is actually more about we're touching about the product. Product roadmap. So Mark is actually, he heard that Zebra BI has a commenting solution that can write back to the database. Will this be mentioned? I don't believe we have mentioned it, but it's something that touches upon on the product roadmap. Mark, I see you smiling.
Yes. Well, it might be. It might be that the information got out. I mean, we do have a public roadmap, right? So we are currently working on extending the view mode annotations. So annotations to the view mode. So this means that even like people who aren't developers, who don't have edit mode permissions, would be able to do these annotations. Now, we want to go one step further to be able to reuse what you actually input into those commentaries. So yes, we are working on a write-back solution of these commentaries. Now, it's still too early to say what the end result will look like, but the POCs right now look really promising, and we've like tested it with like even 5,000 comments, and people simultaneously writing back the commentary and so on. So yeah, I think we'll find a solution pretty soon, and it's stay tuned to Zebra BI and keep track of the roadmap. Once it's published, it will also be mentioned there, and anyone interested will receive a notification.
And the next question, I'm very, very glad that we have actually you, Mark, on the stage, right? Because it's actually about the performance. And I think a month ago we had actually a webinar about how to optimize the performance. So what are the steps you can take to first identify the potential issues with your data model, and then how to start solving them. And yeah, Jenny is actually asking about the switch calculation and how it can potentially have a bad performance results.
Yeah, so let me quickly address this one, right? So oftentimes, like switch is really elegant, right? Because you can basically call whatever you want on demand, right? But of course, with relationships or even with artificial or non-existing relationships, right? With the disconnected table, even those have, of course, performance implications. However, the main bottleneck of performance in 90% of the cases is resulting from a bad data model, bad or bloated or even like wrongly set up, right? And then when you, of course, compound all of this, and then you start solving, basically solving data modeling bad practices with DAX, then the true issues arise, right? So switch, if you're using switch to basically as a workaround for bad data model, then you'll of course have drawbacks, right? But if you use a switch statement like targeted and like with optimized data models, applying best practices, we've seen like pretty good results all over the place, right? So, but yeah, of course, there's always room for optimization and like further squeezing out everything. I've pasted two links to the SQL BI articles talking about the switch optimization. So anyone interested, just go check them out. But yeah, if you're experiencing performance issues, I'd first like just do the model analysis. There are several tools that can help you with this, Tabular Editor or Measure Killer, or like even Semantic Link Labs notebooks now have like best practice analysis. I would just run those tools first and make sure that the data model is sound. And then, if it's still the switch statement, then you can go maybe to DAX and see what you can do.
Great, thanks. And actually, now we're approaching the final last questions. So Diego is actually asking about, and it's actually a great question to end the webinar. So where can you find the demo that we're showing? So everyone who registered for the webinar will first receive an email with the link to the recording and the PBX examples that we use to show those examples, to show you the solutions. But in addition to that, you have an option to sign up for 30-day free trial where you can actually test the things that we've shown you today. And we have a kind of extensive resource base, including the Zebra BI Academy, all the guides, the knowledge base, giving you actually the technical step-by-step how to do a tooltip, a bookmark, a field parameter. I think Mattia was sharing some of the links even during the chat. So make use of that, learn from our experience, and hopefully you will be able to launch your self-service BI and hopefully it will be used and will be bringing value to your business. Mark, any final thoughts? I think we've shared a lot. Hopefully you set us expectations.
As said, the most important thing is, right, talking to the end users, finding out what are the actual needs, and then extending it, right? You build the initial playground, the sandbox environment, and then see how can you extend it, right? But we want to make all reports as actionable as possible, right? And I think Zebra BI visuals help you with this, but yeah, there's other ways to, even with native ones, but yeah, the Zebra BI visuals are like just perfect for this interaction within the self-dashboarding space as well. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Teeling, for being my co-host, and yeah, see you in the next one, I guess.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Cheers.
Cheers.